Madison and I had been dating since freshman year at the University of Arizona, which means I'd seen every one of her phases, from the all-night study session caffeine zombie to the let's grow succulents era. So when she declared, 6 months after we moved to Phoenix for our first real jobs, that 2025 was going to be her fitness renaissance, I barely blinked. At first it was cute. Sunrise jogs on the canal, meal prep boxes covering our fridge door with neon sticky notes, playful flexing in the mirror while I brushed my teeth. But soon the routine hardened into something secretive. She stopped asking me to join weekend runs, and every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday evening, she'd grab her gym bag and slip out without waving the usual laminated schedule in my face. The curiosity itch started the night I opened our joint banking app to pay rent. Her Activate Fit membership fee, $59, charged on the first of every month, hadn't appeared since March, even though her phone kept pinging her at 6 p.m. sharp with heroic, workout complete banners. I double-checked 3 statements, thinking maybe I'd missed a rebrand or a corporate buyout that moved the charge to some parent company. Nothing. Yet her Apple Watch was racking up mile splits and heart rate graphs like she'd joined the Olympic trials. I told myself not to be that suspicious boyfriend, but the doubt didn't care about virtue. At Jacob's suggestion, he's the friend who reads too many tech blogs, I bought a tiny Bluetooth tracker, the kind marketed for lost luggage, and slipped it onto her keyring one Monday while she was in the shower. The next night, when Madison kissed me goodbye with that distracted half-smile, I opened the companion app. The blue dot representing her keys stalled on the I-10 for a minute, then veered south, nowhere near Activate Fit. 30 minutes later, it blinked into an apartment complex in Tempe. After 3 weeks of silent data gathering, I had a full pattern. Every gym night ended at the same second-floor unit. I drove past once, just recon, pretending to deliver DoorDash. Through the blinds, I glimpsed a wall of mirrors, a squat rack, and a guy in a sleeveless hoodie spotting someone I couldn't see. Tyler Bennett. I recognized him from Madison's Instagram Explore feed, the one she swore she scrolled for form tips. He was a freelance trainer, famous for posting motivational reels under Get Toned with Ty. Last Thursday, armed with a file of screenshots, GPS routes, timestamps, and a blurry zoom of Madison's hot pink water bottle on Tyler's counter, I told my boss I needed a long lunch and pointed my Camry toward Tempe. The July heat pressed through the windshield, sticky and accusing. I rehearsed speeches, calm, then furious, then lawyer cold. The elevator smelled like stale protein powder. My heart beat in my throat as I stepped onto the second-floor landing. The door swung open before I knocked, but it wasn't Tyler standing there. It was a tall man in a charcoal blazer, holding a leather portfolio and looking me over like he'd been expecting someone else. "Ethan Clark?" he asked. I froze, mid-breath. "I'm Reed, private investigator." He glanced at my phone, where the map app still glowed incriminatingly. "Looks like we need to talk." He opened the door wider. My stomach dropped into my shoes as I crossed the threshold, realizing the living room mirrors I'd seen from the street were missing. Tyler's kettlebells were gone. The place was staged like an office. Reed shut the door behind me with a click that sounded too final for the thin apartment walls. He gestured to a pair of chairs angled across a glass coffee table. I couldn't sit. My legs had locked. "Is she here?" I demanded, voice shaking despite every pep talk. He adjusted his glasses. "Madison? Not yet. She thinks this is still Tyler's place. Mr. Bennett moved out last week. Lease was short-term. Your girlfriend hasn't updated her routine." I opened my mouth, but no words came. Reed took a manila envelope from his portfolio and slid it onto the table. Inside were printed photos of me, leaving work, grabbing coffee with Jacob, jogging the Greenbelt at sunrise. Dates stamped in red ink matched the same weeks I'd been tailing Madison. "You've been investigating me," I stammered. "Not me," Reed said. "I was hired." He paused, like a teacher waiting for the class to reach the obvious conclusion. "By Madison's mother." The room tipped sideways. Linda Powers, real estate mogul queen of Scottsdale brunch spots, had always treated me politely if distantly, another of Madison's college experiments, tolerated until her daughter's tastes matured. I remembered the Thanksgiving table where Linda asked me whether my marketing firm offered real growth potential, while topping my wine glass without breaking eye contact. Reed continued. Mrs. Powers wanted to ensure her daughter was making sound life choices before finalizing certain estate documents. His tone was clinical, but I felt the subtext slap me. A loyalty test, and I apparently wasn't the subject who failed. A key rattled in the lock. Footsteps. Madison's laugh floated in ahead of her. Bright, rehearsed, the same one that used to pull me from nightmares during finals week. She stepped into the doorway, ponytail swinging, oblivious, until her eyes met mine across Reed's shoulder. The color drained from her face. We stared at each other, State Fair goldfish who'd suddenly discovered glass between us. I thought I had come prepared for betrayal. But I realized betrayal had been busy preparing for me. Madison's gym bag slipped off her shoulder and thumped against the floor like a judge's gavel. For a second, nobody moved. The three of us were frozen in a triangle of mutual disbelief. Her gaze darting from Reed's envelope to my clenched fists and back again, trying to gauge which bomb would explode first. I found my voice somewhere behind my molars. "Why is he tailing me, Mads? Why are you here at all?" I sounded less like the wronged boyfriend and more like a customer arguing an unexpected overdraft fee, sharp, confused, hurt all at once. She opened her mouth, closed it, dragged in a breath. "Ethan, I can explain." Reed interjected with the calm of a man who invoices by the hour. "Madison, before you speak, remember that your mother requested a full report this afternoon." Her shoulders tightened at the word mother the way some people flinch at police sirens. That snapped me back to reality. My phone was still in my hand. The home screen showed a goofy selfie Madison had taken last Christmas, Santa hat slipping over one eye. I locked it, face down on the table, and finally sat. "Explain," I said, hating how desperate it sounded. She sank into the chair opposite me, tugging the hem of her tank top like it doubled as a security blanket. "I hired a PI first," she blurted. "Not Reed, someone from an online referral. After Dad's estate went entirely to Mom, she told me I needed an asset strategy before she'd release any trust funds. She hinted you might not be the safest long-term partner." Her eyes flicked up at me, apology battling defensiveness. "I thought if I could prove you were careless, maybe cheating, I'd have leverage to keep what's mine if we ever split." My pulse hammered. So the fake workouts, Tyler's apartment, that was leverage? Madison squeezed her temples. "It started as a cover. Tyler let me stage training sessions so my tracker logs would look legit while I met with the investigator in private." She swallowed. "But then Mom must have gotten paranoid herself and hired Reed to shadow both of us." A low whistle escaped Reed. "Not exactly. Mrs. Powers called me 6 months ago. She suspected her daughter was testing you, Ethan, and she wanted to know who would cross the line first. My job was simple: observe, never interfere, and present evidence." He slid another document across the table, a notarized letter on Powers Enterprises letterhead. I skimmed the bold lines: irrevocable trust amendments, contingent upon moral stewardship and demonstrated transparency in personal relationships. Madison's cheeks blazed. "She incorporated morality clauses? She can't." "She can," Reed said. "And she did. You're 27. The bylaws let her redirect your portion to charity if you breach fiduciary guidelines or, quote, engage in deceptive behavior that materially endangers long-term asset integrity." He tapped the letter. "Staging an affair to entrap your partner counts." The room seemed to shrink until the air felt syrup-thick. I tried to parse the math of betrayal. She doubted me enough to set a trap, but trusted Tyler, an Instagram trainer, with the secret? Or maybe trust wasn't the commodity at stake, only optics. My chest ached like someone had traded my ribs for bubble wrap and squeezed. Madison's voice cracked. "Ethan, you have to understand. After Dad died, Mom controlled everything. The house in Camelback, the brokerage accounts, even my student loans. She said love makes people naive, that I needed proof you wouldn't ditch me once I had real money." Tears welled, but they felt strategic, rehearsed for the interview about to decide her inheritance. I never actually, with Tyler. He was paid to let me use the space. That's it. My laugh came out hollow. "So all those calorie logs and heart rate spikes? Recorded workouts?" she whispered. I streamed old Peloton classes and let my watch spoof the sensor. Reed leaned back, clasping his portfolio like a priest holding a Bible between warring spouses. "Madison, your mother will be here in..." He checked his Rolex. 11 minutes. We should prepare statements. She whipped toward him. You work for me now. I was the one who signed the retainer. He shook his head. Your retainer check cleared, yes, but the original contract, my fiduciary duty, remains with Mrs. Powers. I disclosed that. Twice. A key turned in the deadbolt, crisp as a starting gun. The door opened to reveal Linda Powers in navy slacks and a silk blouse, flanked by a thin man carrying a briefcase. Her perfume wafted in, a citrus-sharp scent that always reminded me of dealership showrooms. She scanned the room like a CEO inspecting quarterly losses, then set her purse on the counter. Ethan, she said, voice warm but eyes cool. Thank you for meeting on short notice. I apologize for the cloak and dagger. Some lessons require theater. She held my gaze a heartbeat longer than comfort allowed before shifting to her daughter. Madison. Mom, this is absurd, Madison said, rising. If you wanted to test loyalty, you could have just talked to me. Linda arched an eyebrow. I did, 3 times. Each time you deflected, so I created conditions to reveal character. She nodded toward Reed. It seems the results are conclusive. The briefcase man opened a leather folder and produced 2 envelopes. One bore Madison's name, the other mine. Linda slipped the first to her daughter. That contains a codicil removing you from the primary trust. The funds will now endow a scholarship at Dad's alma mater. Madison gasped. You're cutting me off over a hypothetical? It stopped being hypothetical when you orchestrated deception, Linda said. We don't reward manipulative risk to family assets. My throat tightened as she extended the second envelope to me. I didn't move. What is this? A courtesy, she said. Proof you were the only honest party here. It's a letter of recommendation and a check equaling the amount Madison spent on investigators and staging, plus a year's worth of her rent. Consider it restitution. I felt heat rise to my ears. I don't want your money. Linda's smile didn't reach her eyes. Refuse. Donate it. Frame it. Your choice. But you'll take the letter. Companies still care about endorsements from my network. Madison's tears finally spilled. You're destroying my life for an experiment. Linda softened, fractionally. I gave you the stewardship talk at 16, darling. Integrity compounds like interest, deception accrues fees. Her gaze flicked to me again. Ethan, you may stay. Madison, you and I must go over transition logistics. Madison rounded on me, mascara streaking. Say something. Tell her this was my way of protecting us. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Protecting who exactly? You never asked what I wanted. You gambled our relationship to hedge an inheritance. I stood, pocketing the unopened envelope. I'm leaving. I brushed past Linda, whose expression hinted approval, and paused at the door only long enough to hear Madison's wail stretch into a wordless plea. The hallway smelled like fresh paint and despair. As I hit the stairwell, my phone buzzed. Jacob texting a meme about microwaving leftover pizza. The normalcy felt obscene. Outside, the Tempe sun hammered the asphalt, but the heat on my skin was nothing compared to the scorched earth behind me. I reached my car, hands trembling, unsure whether I'd just lost the love of my life or dodged a financial cruise missile, disguised as one. I turned the key, engine rumbling like a question I couldn't yet answer, and pulled onto the avenue without checking the rearview mirror. Traffic on Mill Avenue crawled past murals of saguaros and technicolor coyotes, but I barely registered the storefronts blurring by. My thoughts ricocheted. The dossier of deceit, Linda's cold calculus, Madison's tear-slicked plea. A week earlier, I'd worried about optimizing ad copy for a client's back-to-school campaign. Now, I was starring in a boardroom Shakespeare tragedy. In the left-hand lane, a Honda Civic honked when I drifted. I jerked the wheel, heart punching my ribs, and decided I couldn't drive like this. I pulled into the lot of a Dusty Fry's grocery, killed the engine, and just breathed while the vents blasted recycled air onto my sweaty temples. Jacob answered on the second ring. Dude, lunch break, make it quick. Rumiko's pitching a TikTok collab. I swallowed. Turns out my girlfriend was conducting an undercover psych exam on me for her mom's inheritance. Silence. Then, that sentence has too many plot twists for before noon. I laid it out. The fake workouts read, the trust clause, the restitution check burning a rectangle in my pocket. Jacob whistled low. So what now? Celebrate your graduation from Drama University. The question echoed when the call ended. I stared at my phone, a mess of Madison selfies, college memories, playlists we'd built together. I scrolled to a photo of us at the 2023 homecoming game. Her in an oversized Wildcats hoodie, nose red from kettle corn steam, grinning straight into the lens. I should have felt anger, but an ache spread instead. Grief for a version of us that believed love was simply showing up. I drove home, every mile heavier than the last. Inside our apartment, everything was painfully normal. The vanilla candle she always forgot to blow out, the succulent graveyard by the blinds, the duel of our coffee mugs on the sink ledge. I sank onto the sofa and stared at the envelope from Linda. Its corner was frayed where I'd gripped it too tight. I opened it. The recommendation letter was printed on cream stock, signed with a pen that probably cost more than my laptop. It praised my integrity under adverse circumstances, lauded my decisive action in conflict, and offered an introduction to 4 venture capital partners in the Bay Area. The check beneath it made my stomach flip. 5 figures, blood money and 20-pound bond. I left both on the coffee table. For 2 days I ghosted the world. I called in PTO, family emergency, deleted social apps, binged dumb sci-fi until warp drives blurred my brain. On the 3rd morning, a knock rattled the door. I froze, half expecting Linda's legal envoy. Instead, Tyler Bennett, yes, get toned with Ty himself, stood there in joggers and a sheepish grin. Ethan, right? Madison's boyfriend, ex? Look man, I owe you context. I let him in, more curious than angry. He perched on the armchair like a kid called to the principal's office. Mad paid me to rent my studio hours when I wasn't filming. She said it was a prank on a micromanaging parent. I didn't know she was framing you. He rubbed his neck. When I found out about the PI and the trust stuff, I bailed, told her to cut it. Guess she didn't. He set a duffel on the rug. This was in my closet, her spare sneakers, couple of hoodies. Thought you might want to return them. The bag felt suddenly radioactive. I thanked him anyway. Ty lingered at the door. For what it's worth, she talked about you every session. Said you were the most loyal guy she'd ever met. His expression tweaked with guilt. She just doesn't trust good things to last. After he left, the apartment felt smaller. I hefted the duffel onto the couch, but instead of zipping it shut, I dug until my fingers hit the cool shell of Madison's AirPods case. On it was a tiny sticker we'd picked at a Tucson street fair, 2 cartoon cacti high-fiving. My throat tightened. That afternoon, I drafted an email to Linda Powers. I thanked her for the letter, declined the money, and asked her to donate it, anonymously, to the campus mental health fund Madison had championed during senior year. I kept the tone respectful, even grateful, but made one thing crystal. Manipulating people for character tests corrodes the very character you claim to measure. I hit send, then packed. The walls of our place were jammed with echoes I couldn't mute. I filled 2 suitcases, clothes, laptop, the ramen-stained handbook of brand psychology Madison had gifted me sophomore year. Everything else could wait. I booked an Airbnb casita in Flagstaff for a month. Higher altitude, cooler nights, pine instead of cacti, distance enough to recalibrate. 15 minutes before I left, the apartment door clicked. Madison stepped in, eyes rimmed red, hair unwashed, wearing the tie-dye tee that we'd shared so often it smelled half like her, half like detergent. Neither of us spoke for a full 20 seconds. She broke first. Mom froze my cards. I had to sell the Range Rover already. A shaky laugh. Guess I'm back to public transit, eco-friendly redemption arc, right? I swallowed. I'm sorry, not for the money, for everything collapsing. She nodded, tears gathering. I replayed that moment you walked out, wondered if there was a line I could have said to stop you. Her voice trembled. I didn't cheat, Ethan, but I did betray you, and myself. I believed her about Tyler. The betrayal hurt anyway. She took a tentative step closer. I came to ask if there's any path to fixing this. Therapy, honesty, you name it. Her fingers twisted the hem of the tie-dye. But I'll accept a no. The word hovered on my tongue. I thought of our freshman dorm karaoke nights, midnight campus tacos, the promise we'd scribbled inside that brand psych book. No secrets, no shortcuts. We'd broken it. Could we rewrite it? I'm going away for a while, I said. Her shoulders slumped. Flagstaff, to clear my head. If you want to do real work, no tests, no spies, then maybe we talk when I'm back. Hope flickered in her eyes, but I held up a hand. No promises, Mads, just possibilities. She nodded, wiped her cheek, and reached into her pocket. A folded page, my own handwriting torn from the book. The freshman year promise. She'd carried it all this time. She laid it on the table beside the unopened duffel, squeezed my hand once, and left. I locked up, grabbed my bags, and headed north. The city faded behind the highway heat shimmer, replaced by climbing pines and switchbacks. Somewhere past Camp Verde, my phone buzzed. Jacob, sending a map pin for a Flagstaff coffee shop with obscenely good scones. Under it was a second message from Madison. No paragraphs, no pleas, just a photo of an empty planner page titled Radical Transparency Day 1. I didn't reply. Not yet. But as the air cooled and the mountains opened, I realized radical transparency was as much mine to practice as hers. I rolled down the window, let the pine scent flood in, and drove on, toward whatever version of honesty waited in the high country, untracked by GPS and unburdened by secret tests.